I can still hear Eliza's screams. So sharp, the noise cut me open more than any knife. 1 second we were walking hand in hand, talking about baby names and choosing nursery paint. The next second, 3 men came out from behind a parked car, grinning. "Nice night for a walk," one spat. Then a glint, glass bottle, flying in the air, deadly quiet before chaos. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. My name's Tristan. I spent years as a Navy SEAL, but nothing prepared me for the way fear feels when someone you love is in danger. That night in early fall, Eliza and I were coming back from dinner. She was 6 months pregnant, glowing, her belly stretching her blue sundress. I remember thinking how happy she looked under the streetlight. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 3 guys stepped into our path. They weren't nervous or desperate. They looked excited, prowling for trouble. The tallest held a baseball cap low over his eyes. "Wallet. Phone." Now he barked. I'd faced danger before, so I kept calm, handed him my wallet and phone without a word. But Eliza hesitated, clutching her purse tight. That's when the leader's mouth twisted. He hated being ignored. He shouted at his friend, "Get the bottle." For a split second, I saw a flash in the street lamp. A bottle clear as ice, filled with something that shimmered wrong. Before I could move, before I could do one thing to stop it, he threw it straight at Eliza's stomach. The bottle cracked against her skin, liquid splashing everywhere. I heard her scream, "Hi," desperate, raw. The acid sizzled, eating through her dress, her skin. I dove to cover her, my arms burning, but not fast enough. They ran, laughing, the sound echoing against night silence while my world fell apart. My hands shook as I dialed 911. Neighbors came out. Some screamed, some just stared. Paramedics arrived fast. They lifted Eliza onto a stretcher, racing her away. I rode in the ambulance, barely breathing, her blood and the acrid smell of chemicals soaking my shirt. The hospital lights were blinding. Doctors rushed her inside, a blur of voices and alarms. They wouldn't let me follow. I sat in a cold plastic chair, clothes crusted with the scent of panic and smoke. Every second crawled. I pressed my fists so tight my knuckles hurt, remembered training, breathing exercises, and how to stay calm. None of it worked. I kept picturing Eliza's eyes, wide and wild. All I wanted was to trade places, to fix it, to make the pain stop. The automatic doors opened, and a detective approached. "I'm Detective Blake. We need a statement." His voice was gentle, but I barely heard him. I gave answers on autopilot, descriptions, voices, memories through a haze. Blake said they'd investigate, but the way he stared told me he thought the odds were bad. When he left, the nurse brought a bag of Eliza's things. Her dress, sliced and ruined. Her phone, the first ultrasound picture, now spotted with blood. The operating room lights flickered under the door. I sat shaking, rage growing inside of me, bigger than fear. I kept thinking about all things I'd learned to do as a Navy SEAL. Demolitions, clean work, leaving no evidence. Bad people never expect their victims to be more dangerous than them. That night, in the hospital waiting room, something broke inside me. But something else began to form. A promise, sharper than any knife. I wasn't just going to wait for justice. Felix came through faster than expected. By midnight, he'd sent me encrypted files, security footage from 3 different cameras near Fletcher and Oak. I opened my laptop, studied every frame with surgical focus. There they were, clear as daylight under streetlights. 3 men walking away from our direction, one swinging that bottle carelessly, all 3 laughing like they'd just won something. I zoomed in, took screenshots, memorized their faces. The tallest wore a red bandana tied around his wrist, gang colors I recognized from my intelligence training days. The second had a neck tattoo, some kind of snake design crawling up to his jawline. The third, the one who threw the acid, had a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Felix sent a follow-up message, ran facial recognition through some databases I'm not supposed to access. Got hits. Leader's name is Preston Cole, multiple priors, assault, drug possession. The other two are Dominic Hayes and Ryder Quinn. They operate out of the east side, near the industrial zone. Warehouse on 10th Street. Be careful, man. I didn't respond. Careful wasn't part of my plan anymore. The next morning, I visited Eliza before heading out. She was still unconscious, breathing through tubes, her body fighting infections from the burns. Nurses moved around quietly, checking monitors, adjusting medication. I sat beside her bed, held her bandaged hand gently. "I'm going to fix this," I whispered. "I promise." She couldn't hear me, but saying it out loud made it real. A doctor came by during rounds, explained the surgeries ahead, skin grafts, reconstructive procedures, physical therapy that would take years. Every word felt like another weight pressing down on my chest. Our baby was gone. Eliza's body was destroyed. And those men were out there, probably already laughing about something else, hurting someone else. I left the hospital and drove east toward the industrial district. The area was run down, filled with abandoned factories and empty lots where weeds pushed through cracked concrete. Perfect place for criminals to hide. I parked several blocks away, changed into dark clothes, pulled a baseball cap low over my face. The warehouse Felix mentioned sat behind a chain-link fence covered in rust. Graffiti covered the walls. A few cars were parked outside, older models, beat up. I circled the perimeter on foot, staying in shadows, counting exits, windows, weak points. This was what I'd trained for: surveillance, target assessment, identifying vulnerabilities. Two men stood outside smoking. I stayed hidden, watched them through a gap in the fence. Neither was one of my targets, just low-level lookouts. They finished their cigarettes, went back inside. The place looked busy. People coming and going, carrying boxes, clearly running some kind of operation. Over the next 3 days, I became a ghost in that neighborhood. I rented a cheap room in a motel nearby, set up surveillance from different angles. I learned their schedules, when shipments arrived, when guards changed, when the place emptied out at night. Preston, the leader, showed up every evening around 8, stayed for a few hours, then left in a black SUV. Dominic worked mornings, handling logistics. Ryder came and went randomly, unpredictable. During the days, I visited Eliza. She woke up on the third day, groggy from medication. When she saw me, tears filled her eyes immediately. "The baby." Her voice cracked. I wanted to lie, to give her more time before reality hit. But she deserved truth. "The doctors couldn't save our baby. I'm so sorry." She turned her face away from me, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I moved closer, tried to hold her, but she flinched away from my touch. The rejection hurt worse than anything physical could. "This is my fault," she whispered. I hesitated. "I should have just given them my purse." "Don't say that. This isn't your fault. Those men, they chose violence. They chose to destroy our lives." But she wasn't listening. Pain had locked her inside herself, somewhere I couldn't reach. A nurse came in, asked me to step out while they checked her vitals and changed dressings. I stood in the hallway, fists clenched, jaw tight, that cold focus sharpening inside me again. Detective Blake found me there. He looked tired, frustrated. "We've been working the case hard. Got some leads from security footage, but nothing solid yet. These guys are smart. They know how to avoid cameras." I nodded, playing the grieving husband. "Whatever you can do, I appreciate it." Blake studied me carefully. "How's your wife handling everything?" "She's broken. We both are. I understand. Listen, I know you have a military background. Special forces, demolitions expert, right?" His tone shifted slightly, more cautious. "That was a long time ago. Still, I need to say this. Don't do anything stupid. Let us handle it. Justice takes time, but it happens." I met his eyes directly. "I just want my wife to heal." He didn't look convinced, but he left. I returned to Eliza's room. She was staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down her face silently. I sat beside her, didn't try to touch her again, just stayed present. Sometimes presence was all you could offer. That night, I returned to my surveillance spot near the warehouse. Around 11, the place emptied out except for one person, Dominic. He was alone inside, lights on in a back office. Through binoculars, I watched him counting money, sorting drugs into bags. My opportunity. I checked my gear, gloves, dark clothes, combat knife, zip ties. Everything I needed. This wasn't about killing yet. This was about sending a message, about letting them know someone was coming for them. I waited until Dominic turned off the office light, started walking toward the exit. Then I moved, silent and fast across the empty lot. Years of training made me invisible in darkness. I slipped inside through a side door I'd already unlocked during an earlier pass. The warehouse smelled like chemicals and mold. Dominic was in the main room, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear laughing about something. I approached from behind, every step calculated. When I was close enough, I grabbed him from behind, one hand over his mouth, the other pressing a pressure point on his neck. He struggled briefly, then went limp, not dead, just unconscious. I dragged him to a back storage room, tied his hands and feet with zip ties, duct taped his mouth. He'd wake up in a few minutes. I wanted him awake for what came next. While I waited, I planted small explosive charges around the warehouse. Nothing lethal, just enough to cause controlled fires, to destroy their operation, to terrify them. Dominic's eyes fluttered open. When he saw me standing over him, recognition hit. He remembered me from that night. Fear flooded his face. I leaned close, spoke quietly. Remember the pregnant woman? The one you laughed about while her skin melted? He tried to scream through the tape, thrashing against the restraints. Your friends are next. Tell Preston and Ryder someone's coming. Tell them to sleep with their eyes open. I stood up, walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Dominic's muffled screams. I triggered the first explosive remotely from outside. Fire bloomed inside the warehouse, controlled but devastating. I was already 3 blocks away when sirens started wailing. This was just the beginning. They'd taken everything from me. Now I was going to show them what real fear felt like. The news the next morning ran the warehouse fire as a drug operation gone wrong. Police found Dominic tied up outside, hysterical, babbling about someone coming for them. Detective Blake called me around noon while I was sitting in Eliza's hospital room. Where were you last night between 11 and midnight? His voice was sharp, suspicious. Here, at the hospital. You can check the visitor logs. Silence on the other end. I'd actually signed in at 10:45, stayed visible near the nurse's station until 12:30. Alibi established before I ever went near that warehouse. Planning ahead was everything. Dominic Hayes gave a description. Said someone grabbed him, threatened him about a pregnant woman, then set the place on fire. Sounds like he's got enemies. Drug dealers usually do. Blake wasn't buying it completely, but he had nothing concrete. Stay available. Don't leave town. I hung up. Eliza was awake, staring out the window. She'd barely spoken since learning about the baby. The doctor said depression was normal after trauma this severe, that she'd need therapy, time, patience. But watching her withdraw further into herself every day was torture. The police called. I said gently, "They're making progress on the case." She didn't respond, just kept staring at nothing. I wanted to tell her everything, that I'd found them, that I was making them pay, but she didn't need that burden. This was my war to fight. Over the next week, I dove deeper into surveillance. Felix sent me everything he could find: Preston's home address, his girlfriend's apartment, his mother's house. Ryder lived in a rundown duplex near the docks. Dominic was recovering in a hospital under police protection, paranoid and broken. Preston was the real target. He gave the orders that night, decided our lives were worthless entertainment. I needed to understand him completely before making my move. So I followed him everywhere, to the gym, to restaurants, to meetings with other gang members. He drove that black SUV like he owned the streets, never looking over his shoulder, never afraid. That confidence was going to kill him. I also learned he was smart. After the warehouse fire, he hired private security, 2 bodyguards who rotated shifts, never leaving him alone. That complicated things, but didn't make them impossible. Navy SEAL training taught me that every security system has holes. You just need patience to find them. Meanwhile, Eliza's physical condition slowly improved. Doctors performed the first skin graft surgery, taking healthy tissue from her thigh to repair some of the damage on her abdomen. She woke from anesthesia crying, asking why they saved her, why they didn't just let her die with the baby. Those words broke something inside me. "Don't say that," I pleaded, holding her hand carefully. "I need you. We're going to get through this." "How?" Her voice was hollow, empty. "Our baby's gone. I'm destroyed. Every time I look at my body, I'll remember what they did. How do we come back from that?" I didn't have answers. Some wounds don't heal, they just scar over, permanent reminders of pain. But I couldn't tell her that. Instead, I promised her we'd find a way, that time would help, that I'd be beside her through everything. Julian visited later that week, brought flowers, and tried to lighten the mood with stupid jokes that fell flat. When Eliza fell asleep, he pulled me into the hallway. "You look terrible. When's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I know that look. You had it in Afghanistan, right before you went dark for 2 weeks and came back covered in." He stopped himself. "Don't do anything crazy. I'm just trying to help my wife recover." Julian studied me carefully. "The warehouse fire. The gang member who's now traumatized and under police protection. That's connected to you somehow, isn't it?" I met his eyes directly. "You don't want to know." He grabbed my arm. "Tristan, listen to me. I get it. I'd want revenge too. But you can't." "Can't what?" "Let them walk away? Let them laugh about killing our baby while Eliza suffers? Tell me what I'm supposed to do, Julian." He had no answer. Nobody did. There's no handbook for this kind of pain. No right way to handle having your entire future destroyed by random violence. That night, I returned to tracking Preston. He'd moved to a safe house outside the city, a suburban rental with high fences and security cameras. His 2 bodyguards worked 12-hour shifts. The night guard was older, less alert, liked to smoke cigarettes by the back door every hour around 3 in the morning. Patterns. Everyone had patterns, and patterns could be exploited. I also tracked Ryder, who'd gone completely underground after the warehouse fire. He wasn't at his duplex anymore, probably hiding somewhere. But people always surfaced eventually, for food, for money, for connection. I just had to wait. 2 weeks after the attack, Eliza came home. The apartment felt wrong with her there. Too many memories, too much pain trapped in every room. She moved slowly, carefully, her bandages still covering most of her torso. I'd converted the nursery into a regular room, packed away all the baby things while she was hospitalized. She noticed immediately. "You took everything down." Her voice cracked. "I thought it would be easier." "Easier?" She turned on me, anger flashing in her eyes for the first time since the attack. "You think hiding it makes it easier? Our baby existed. For 6 months, our baby was real. And now you've erased every trace like it never happened." "That's not what But she was already walking away, locking herself in the bedroom. I stood alone in the hallway, realizing I'd made everything worse. I didn't know how to help her, didn't know how to fix any of this. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I opened it, felt rage flood through me. "Heard your wife's home. How's she doing?" They were still watching, still taunting, testing me. I texted back for the first time. "You made a mistake. You should have killed me that night." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. Good. Let them sweat. Let them wonder who was hunting them. I opened my laptop, pulled up the surveillance footage Felix had sent from Preston's safe house, studied the guard rotations, the camera blind spots, the neighbors' schedules. I had everything I needed. Now it was time to move from watching to acting. Time to show them that some people don't forgive. Some people don't forget. And some people have skills that turn grief into something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. Preston's safe house had a weakness. Every Tuesday night, Both bodyguards left for exactly 40 minutes to pick up a drug shipment from a supplier across town. Preston stayed alone during that window, probably thinking his cameras and locked doors were enough protection. They weren't. I watched from a car parked 3 houses down, hood up, face hidden. At exactly 9:30, both guards drove off in the SUV. I gave it 5 minutes, then moved. Black clothes, gloves, a small backpack with everything I needed. The back fence was easy. I'd already cut the bottom section 2 nights before, just enough to slide under without triggering motion sensors. The cameras covered the doors and driveway, but there was a blind spot near the basement window. I'd practiced this entry twice already when the house was empty during the day. Now I dropped down, used a glass cutter, reached through, unlocked it from inside. Silent. Clean. The basement was dark, filled with boxes and old furniture. I moved upstairs carefully, listening. Music played somewhere above, rap, bass thumping. Preston was in the living room. I could hear him talking on the phone, laughing about something. I reached the main floor, stayed in the shadows of the hallway. Through the doorway, I saw him, sitting on the couch, feet up on the coffee table, completely relaxed. He had no idea death was standing 10 feet away. But I didn't want him dead yet. Death was too easy, too quick. I waited until he ended his call, set his phone down. Then I stepped into the doorway. Remember me? Preston's head snapped around. For a split second, confusion crossed his face. Then recognition hit, and fear followed right behind it. He lunged for something under the couch cushion, probably a gun, but I was faster. 3 strides and I had him by the throat, slammed him back against the couch. "The pregnant woman," I said quietly. "The one your friend threw acid on. That was my wife." His eyes went wide. He tried to speak, but I was choking him too hard. I loosened my grip slightly. You're that guy," he gasped. "Navy SEAL. Demolitions expert. You picked the wrong family. I could have killed him right there." Snapped his neck, walked away. But that wouldn't send the message I needed. Instead, I zip-tied his hands behind his back, duct-taped his mouth. He struggled, making muffled sounds. But I was trained for this, controlling hostile targets without killing them unless necessary. I pulled out a small device from my backpack. Looked like a phone charger with wires attached. I set it on the coffee table in front of him, let him stare at it. "That's C4. Not much, just enough to level this room. It's on a timer, 20 minutes. Your guards will be back in 15. His eyes filled with terror. I leaned close. "Every time you close your eyes, every time you feel safe, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to know someone better than you is out there, watching, waiting." Dominic learned that lesson at the warehouse. "Now it's your turn." I stood up, walked toward the basement door. Behind me, Preston thrashed against the restraints, screaming through the tape. I didn't look back. Outside, I slipped through the fence, disappeared into the darkness. From my car, I watched through binoculars. The guards returned 12 minutes later, rushed inside. I could see lights flashing, movement through windows. They found Preston, cut him free. I triggered the device remotely. Not an explosion, just a loud bang and smoke, a flashbang modified to look like a failed detonation. Enough to traumatize, to make them think they'd barely escaped death. The house erupted in chaos. Guards dragged Preston outside. He was shaking, pointing everywhere, paranoid. Police arrived 20 minutes later. I drove away slowly, calmly, just another car in the neighborhood. The next morning, I visited Eliza. She was sitting up in bed, looking at her phone. For the first time in weeks, something other than emptiness showed on her face. Curiosity. "There was an incident last night," she said. "Police found one of those gang members tied up in a house with an explosive device. News says it's gang warfare. Someone's targeting them." I kept my expression neutral. Maybe they made enemies. She looked at me carefully. "Tristan, are you?" "I'm just trying to take care of you," I interrupted gently. "That's all that matters." She didn't push further, but suspicion lingered in her eyes. We sat in silence for a while. the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between us. Detective Blake showed up at my apartment that afternoon. I'd expected this. Preston Cole nearly died last night. Says someone broke into his safe house, tied him up, left an explosive. Description matches you. Height, build, military background. I was here. My brother was with me. We had dinner, watched a movie. Blake's jaw tightened. Julian confirmed that. Yes. But I know what's happening here. You're hunting them. This stops now, or I'll arrest you for obstruction. Arrest me for what? Being home with my brother while some gang member got what was coming to him. We stared at each other. Blake couldn't prove anything, and we both knew it. Your wife needs you, he said finally. Don't throw your life away for revenge. After he left, I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Blake was wrong about one thing. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. The kind courts couldn't deliver, the kind that required getting your hands dirty. My phone buzzed. Felix sent photos from social media. Ryder had surfaced, posted from a motel outside the city. Stupid. Criminals always made mistakes when they got scared. I had his location now. 2 down, 1 to go. But as I planned my next move, Eliza's words echoed in my mind. Are you, she knew. Maybe not the details, but she sensed what I was doing. And part of me wondered if she'd stop me or thank me when this was all over. Either way, I couldn't stop now. Not until every person who destroyed our lives understood what real fear felt like. Not until justice, my kind of justice, was finally served. Ryder's motel was exactly the kind of place people hid when they were running. Cheap, cash only, no questions asked. Room 14, ground floor, curtains always drawn. Felix confirmed he'd been there 3 days, barely leaving except for fast food runs. But I didn't go after him directly. Not yet. Fear was a better weapon than violence when you wanted someone to break completely. I started small. The first night, I slashed 2 tires on his car while he slept. The next morning, I watched from across the parking lot as he discovered the damage, his head whipping around frantically, looking for threats. He called someone, probably Preston, arguing loudly on the phone. The second night, I left a note under his windshield wiper. I know where you sleep. Through my binoculars, I saw him find it, watched the color drain from his face. He packed immediately, checked out within an hour. Felix tracked his new location by that evening. Another motel, 15 miles east. I followed, left another note on his car. Running won't help. This pattern continued for a week. Every time Ryder found a new hiding spot, I found him within hours. Small messages, harmless actions that slowly destroyed his sanity. A photo of him sleeping slipped under his door. His food order at a drive-thru changed mysteriously to include a note. I'm always watching. Preston was getting the same treatment. After the safe house incident, he'd moved to a fortified apartment with round-the-clock security. But security couldn't stop psychological warfare. I hacked his email through Felix, sent messages from his own account to his contacts. I'm sorry for what I did. She was pregnant. I posted his address on criminal forums, made him a target for rivals. His paranoia grew. Felix showed me security footage from outside Preston's building. He barely left anymore, jumped at every sound, trusted nobody. Meanwhile, Dominic remained in psychiatric care. The warehouse fire and my threat had broken something in him. According to hospital records Felix accessed, he had panic attacks, refused to sleep, kept saying someone was coming to finish what they started. Good. Let them all suffer the way Eliza suffered. But watching Eliza was harder than watching them. She'd started physical therapy for her burns, every session leaving her exhausted and crying. The skin grafts were healing, but the scars would be permanent, thick, discolored tissue covering her abdomen where our baby should have been. One afternoon, she asked me to help her change bandages. When I saw the full extent of damage for the first time, my hands shook. The acid had eaten through layers of skin, leaving twisted patterns that would never fade. Don't look at me like that, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Like what? Like I'm broken. Like you can't stand to see me. I pulled her close carefully, mindful of her injuries. You're not broken. You're the strongest person I know. But she pushed away. I see it in your eyes, Tristan. Every time you look at me, you see what they did. You see the baby we lost. How are we supposed to move forward when all we do is remind each other of that night? I had no answer. She was right. Every moment together was a reminder of what we'd lost, what they'd stolen from us. That night, I escalated the psychological warfare. I planted fake explosive devices in both Ryder's and Preston's cars. Just empty boxes with blinking lights and beeping sounds. When they discovered them, both called police immediately. Bomb squads were dispatched, roads blocked off, news cameras everywhere. The news reported it as gang intimidation tactics. Police found nothing dangerous, just props designed to terrify. Detective Blake called me again. Where were you between midnight and 3 this morning? Sleeping. Alone. My wife stayed at her mother's house tonight. Convenient that you have no alibi during the exact time these devices were planted. Sounds like those guys have serious enemies. Maybe they should have thought about that before hurting innocent people. Blake's voice dropped dangerously low. I know it's you. I can't prove it yet, but I will. And when I do, you're going to prison for a very long time. Then I guess you better find proof, detective. I hung up. Blake was getting too close, asking too many questions. I needed to finish this soon before he connected enough dots to make an arrest. Julian confronted me that same evening, showed up at my apartment furious. The police came to my work asking about you, about your alibi for multiple nights. What are you doing? Protecting my family. By becoming a criminal? By risking prison? Eliza needs you here, not locked up for revenge. Eliza needs justice. The system failed us. Those men threw acid on a pregnant woman and they're walking free. So yes, I'm doing something about it. Julian ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. This isn't justice, it's obsession. You're destroying yourself. They destroyed us first. He left without another word. I knew he was right on some level. This was consuming me, changing me into something darker. But I couldn't stop. Every time I saw Eliza's scars, every time I remembered our baby's ultrasound picture covered in blood, the rage returned stronger than before. 2 days later, Ryder cracked. Felix intercepted a call between him and Preston. Ryder was hysterical, begging to go to police, to confess everything, to get protection. Preston screamed at him, called him weak, threatened to kill him if he talked. That gave me an idea. If Ryder wanted police protection, maybe I'd give him a reason to run straight to them. I waited outside his newest motel at 2 in the morning. When he stumbled outside for a cigarette, I stepped from the shadows. He saw me, froze completely, cigarette falling from his lips. Remember me? I asked quietly. He ran, scrambled for his room, hands shaking so badly he dropped his keys twice. I didn't chase him, just stood there, letting him see me, letting fear do the work. He locked himself inside. Through the window, I watched him grab his phone, dial frantically. Police would arrive soon. I disappeared before they got there. The next morning, news reported that Ryder Quinn had turned himself in, confessing to multiple crimes including the acid attack. He claimed someone was hunting him, trying to kill him, and he'd rather face prison than die. 1 down, 2 to go. But when I told Eliza that one of her attackers had confessed, her reaction wasn't relief, it was emptiness. Does it change anything? She asked. Does his confession bring our baby back? Does it undo my scars? No, it didn't. And maybe that was the truth I'd been avoiding. Revenge couldn't heal us. It could only balance the scales of pain. But I was too far gone to stop now. Ryder's confession changed everything. His lawyer made a deal, full testimony against Preston and Dominic in exchange for reduced charges. The district attorney was building a case, finally taking the attack seriously now that they had someone willing to talk. But that meant Preston would disappear soon. Men like him didn't wait around for arrests. They ran, crossed borders, vanished into countries without extradition treaties. I had maybe 72 hours before he was gone forever. Detective Blake called me in for questioning again. This time his tone was different, more aggressive, more certain. Ryder Quinn says someone's been terrorizing him for weeks. Slashed tires, threatening notes, photos of him sleeping. He's convinced this person is connected to the acid attack victim, meaning you. Sounds paranoid. Drug users often are. He described tactics consistent with military psychological operations. Controlled fear campaigns, surveillance, intentional pattern disruption. That's SEAL training, Tristan. I met his eyes calmly. Half the private security guys in this city have military backgrounds. Could be anyone. Blake leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. You tracked these men down using skills and contacts from your Navy days. You've been systematically breaking them psychologically because you're smart enough to know murder would get you caught. But intimidation? Harder to prove. Interesting theory. Got any evidence? His jaw clenched. Not yet. But I'm watching you. One mistake, and I'll have everything I need to put you away for years. Your wife's already lost enough. Don't make her lose you too. After he left, I sat in the interrogation room alone, thinking. Blake was right about one thing. Eliza had lost enough. But he was wrong about my endgame. This wasn't about psychological torture anymore. Preston needed to disappear permanently, and I needed it to look like anything except revenge. Felix called that evening with critical information. Preston's booking flights. Private charter to Mexico, leaving in 2 days. He's liquidating assets, closing accounts. He knows the walls are closing in. 2 days. I had to move now. I spent the next 24 hours planning the perfect trap. Felix hacked Preston's email again, sent a fake message from one of his suppliers about a final drug deal before leaving the country. Big payout, easy money. Meet at an abandoned industrial building on the waterfront, a location Preston would recognize as safe territory from past deals. The building was perfect for what I had planned. 5 stories, concrete and steel construction, scheduled for demolition in 3 weeks. I'd already scouted it thoroughly, knew every entrance, every structural weakness, every place to set charges. I spent the night before the meeting preparing. Small explosive devices placed at key support columns, timed perfectly, wired to remote detonators. Not obvious bombs, hidden inside walls, beneath floors, disguised as construction debris. When triggered, the building would collapse in a controlled demolition, exactly like I'd been trained to execute. To anyone investigating afterward, it would look like the old structure finally gave way. Tragic accident. Wrong place, wrong time. Preston arrived exactly on schedule. 9 p.m., 2 bodyguards flanking him, guns visible under their jackets. They entered the building cautiously, scanning for threats. I watched from across the street through a scope, waiting for them to reach the 3rd floor where the meeting was supposed to happen. They climbed the stairs, footsteps echoing in the empty structure. When all 3 were positioned in the center of the 3rd floor, exactly where I needed them, I triggered the first sequence. The explosions were perfectly calibrated, loud enough to trap them, controlled enough to avoid drawing immediate attention from far away. Support columns on floors 1 and 2 gave way, cutting off their exit route. Dust and debris filled the air. I could hear shouting, panic. Preston's voice carried through the broken windows. It's a trap. Get out now. But there was no way out. I'd planned for every escape route. The stairwells were blocked. The fire escapes had been sabotaged days earlier. They were trapped on the 3rd floor of a building I was about to bring down completely. I waited 5 minutes, let the panic set in, let them understand they were going to die. Then I triggered the final sequence. The building collapsed in stages, floor by floor, controlled and precise, exactly like a professional demolition. The sound was massive, concrete and steel crashing down in clouds of dust. The entire structure pancaked into rubble in less than 30 seconds. Emergency sirens started wailing almost immediately. Fire trucks, ambulances, police, all rushing toward the waterfront. I was already walking away, blending into the small crowd of people who'd come outside to see what the noise was about. By the time I reached my car 3 blocks away, news helicopters were circling overhead. I drove home calmly, listening to radio reports of a tragic building collapse, possible victims trapped inside, investigation ongoing. At home, I cleaned up, destroyed everything I'd used, gloves, tools, detonators, all of it dissolved in acid and flushed away. No evidence. No traces. My phone buzzed. Julian's name appeared on the screen. I answered. "Where are you?" His voice was tense. "Home." "What?" "A building just collapsed downtown. 3 people are dead. And somehow I know you're involved. You're paranoid." "Tristan, listen to me." I hung up. Poured myself whiskey, sat in the dark living room, waiting for the inevitable knock on my door. It came 2 hours later. Detective Blake, accompanied by 3 uniformed officers. "Preston Cole is dead," Blake said without preamble. "Building collapse. Too convenient, too clean. Where were you tonight between 8 and 10 p.m.? "Here. Alone. Eliza's still at her mother's place." "No alibi again. What a surprise. Am I under arrest?" Blake stared at me with pure frustration. "Not yet, but we're going through that building with forensic teams. If we find one trace of explosives, one shred of evidence connecting you, then I guess you better start looking, detective." He left angry, but I wasn't worried. My work was too clean, too professional. They'd find nothing except an old building that finally gave way under its own weight. 3 men were dead. The ones who'd destroyed my family, who'd killed my child, who'd scarred my wife forever. Justice, my kind of justice, had been served. But as I sat alone in the darkness, whiskey burning in my throat, I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just emptiness. Because Eliza was still broken. Our baby was still gone. And revenge, I was realizing too late, couldn't fix any of it. The news spent 3 days covering the building collapse. Structural engineers testified it was an old building, weak foundation, decades of neglect. No evidence of foul play. Preston Cole, his 2 bodyguards, all ruled accidental deaths. Case closed. Ryder's testimony became useless without Preston to prosecute. The district attorney offered him a deal anyway, 15 years for the acid attack, eligible for parole in 10. Dominic remained in psychiatric care, ruled mentally unfit for trial. The system had delivered some justice, but not the kind that mattered. I thought I'd feel different after it was over. Lighter, maybe. Like I'd carried a weight and finally set it down. But the weight stayed, got heavier even, pressing on my chest every time I breathed. Eliza came home from her mother's place a week after the collapse. She moved slowly through the apartment, touching things absently, the couch, the kitchen counter, the door frame to what used to be the nursery. When she finally looked at me, her eyes held something I'd never seen before, knowledge and fear mixed together. "Sit down," she said quietly. "We need to talk." I sat across from her at the kitchen table. The space between us felt massive, like miles instead of feet. 3 men attacked us, she began, her voice steady but cold. 1 threw acid on me. All 3 are now dead or destroyed. Ryder in prison, Dominic in a mental hospital, Preston buried under a collapsed building. She paused, her eyes locked on mine. "That's not coincidence, Tristan. That's you." I started to deny it, but she held up her hand. Don't lie to me. Not after everything." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've known for weeks. The warehouse fire started the same night you came home with ash on your shoes. The safe house incident happened when you had no real alibi. The building collapse." She stopped, tears forming. "I know what you did." Silence filled the apartment. Outside, traffic hummed. Inside, our entire marriage hung in balance. "They deserved it," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know." Her answer surprised me. "They destroyed our lives. Killed our baby. Left me scarred forever. Part of me is glad they're gone, glad they suffered." She wiped her eyes angrily. "But the other part of me is terrified of you. Terrified of what you became. what you're capable of. I did it for us. For justice. For revenge, she corrected sharply. Not for us. For yourself. Because you couldn't handle feeling powerless. So you turned into something worse than them. You became a killer. Her words hit like physical blows. I'm nothing like them. They attacked innocent people for fun. I made them pay by murdering 3 people. She stood up, started pacing. Do you know what that makes you, Tristan? A murderer. And I'm married to you. I share a bed with someone who plans executions like their dinner plans. What was I supposed to do? My voice rose, frustration boiling over. Let them walk away? Let them laugh about killing our child? The police weren't going to stop them, so you decided to be judge, jury, and executioner? She spun to face me. You didn't ask me, didn't consider what I wanted. You just took everything into your own hands and left me here to pick up the pieces of a husband I don't even recognize anymore. I did this for you. Don't put this on me. She slammed her hand on the table. I never asked you to kill anyone. I never wanted blood on your hands. I just wanted you here, helping me heal, being the man I married. But instead, you turned into a ghost, disappearing at night, lying about alibis, obsessing over revenge while I fell apart alone. The truth of her words broke something inside me. While I'd been hunting them, planning their destruction, Eliza had been suffering alone. I'd been so focused on making them pay, I'd forgotten to help the one person who actually needed me. I'm sorry, I whispered. I thought if I made them suffer, it would fix things. Make us whole again. She laughed bitterly, tears streaming down her face. Nothing can make us whole, Tristan. Our baby is gone. My body is destroyed. And now my husband is a killer. How do we come back from that? I had no answer. We stood in our kitchen, 2 broken people who'd lost everything, staring at each other across a distance that felt impossible to cross. Do you regret it? She asked finally. Killing them. I thought about it honestly. About Preston's face when he realized he was trapped. About Dominic's screams in the warehouse. About Ryder running scared for weeks. Did I regret it? No, I admitted. They took everything from us. I'd do it again. Eliza nodded slowly, something dying in her eyes. That's what I was afraid of. She walked toward the bedroom, stopped at the door. I need time. I don't know if I can be married to someone who kills people, even people who deserve it. I don't know if I can look at you and not see blood on your hands. Eliza, Detective Blake knows it was you, she continued. He came to see me yesterday, told me everything he suspects. He can't prove it, but he knows. Which means you're going to spend the rest of your life waiting for evidence to surface, for someone to talk, for one mistake to put you in prison. She met my eyes. Is that the future you chose for us? Running from consequences forever. She closed the bedroom door before I could respond. I stood alone in the kitchen, her words echoing in the empty space. Blake knew. Eliza knew. And neither could prove it, but both would always look at me differently. I'd won my war against them, executed perfect revenge. But in the process, I'd lost something more valuable than victory. I'd lost the woman I'd done all of this for. I'd lost myself in the process of making them suffer. For the first time since that night in the park, I wondered if revenge had been worth the price. If justice by my own hands had actually solved anything, or just created new wounds that would never heal. In the bedroom, I heard Eliza crying, deep, broken sobs that tore through the walls. And I realized with crushing certainty that killing them hadn't brought our baby back, hadn't healed her scars, hadn't fixed us. It had just added more pain to a situation already drowning in it. The next 3 weeks felt like living with a stranger. Eliza moved through the apartment like a shadow, barely speaking, avoiding eye contact. She slept in the guest room. I stayed in the living room most nights, unable to face the emptiness of our bed. Detective Blake stopped calling. The building collapse investigation concluded with structural failure as the official cause. Preston's death was ruled accidental. I'd gotten away with it completely, but the victory tasted like ash. Julian came by one afternoon, found me sitting alone in the dark apartment. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down across from me, studying my face. "You look terrible," he finally said. "Thanks. Eliza's staying with Mom. Did you know that?" I nodded. She'd left 2 days ago with a suitcase, said she needed space to think. I hadn't tried to stop her. She told Mom everything. Julian continued carefully. "What happened to her? The baby, what she thinks you did to those men." My stomach tightened. "What did Mom say?" "She's worried. About both of you. She thinks you need help. Real help. Therapy, maybe marriage counseling." I laughed bitterly. "Marriage counseling? For what? So we can talk about how I killed 3 people while my wife decides if she can still love a murderer." Julian leaned forward. "Did you kill them?" I met his eyes directly. "What do you think?" "I think you're capable of it. I think losing your baby broke something inside you. And I think you did what you thought was right, even if it was wrong." He paused. "But I also think you're destroying yourself with guilt now that it's over." He was right. Every night, I saw their faces, Preston's terror as the building came down, Dominic's screams, Ryder's panic. I told Eliza I didn't regret it, but that was a lie. Not regret for killing them. They deserved what they got. Regret for what it cost me. For losing Eliza in the process. "She won't even look at me anymore," I admitted quietly. "Every time she tries, all she sees is blood." "Then give her time. Let her process this. And figure out who you want to be now that the revenge is over." After Julian left, I sat alone thinking about his words. Who was I now? Not the man Eliza married. That version died the night they attacked us. Not the Navy SEAL I used to be. I'd left that behind years ago. I was something in between, something darker, shaped by loss and rage. A week later, Eliza called. Her voice sounded tired, distant. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at the coffee shop on Madison Street tomorrow at 2? I agreed immediately. The next day, I arrived early, nervous in a way I hadn't felt since our first date years ago. When Eliza walked in, my breath caught. She looked thinner, paler, but there was something different in her eyes, a clarity that hadn't been there before. We sat across from each other, coffee between us neither of us drank. "I've been in therapy," she started. "Talking through everything. The attack, losing the baby, my scars, you." She folded her hands carefully. "My therapist asked me what I wanted from this marriage moving forward. And honestly, Tristan, I don't know." Pain shot through my chest. "Eliza, let me finish." Her voice was firm, but not angry. "What you did, whether it was murder or justice or revenge, it happened. I can't change that. You can't take it back. Those men are gone because of you. And we both have to live with that reality. They deserved, maybe they did," she interrupted. "Maybe they deserved everything you gave them. But that doesn't change what it's done to us. To you. You're not the same person I married. And I'm not the same person I was before they attacked me." Tears filled her eyes. "We're both broken in different ways now. And I don't know if broken people can fix each other, or if we just keep cutting each other on our sharp edges. So what are you saying?" My voice came out hoarse. "You want a divorce?" She hesitated, wiping her eyes. "I'm saying I don't know what I want. Part of me is grateful you made them pay. Part of me is horrified by what you're capable of. And part of me just wants to go back to before any of this happened, when we were happy and expecting a baby and planning our future. We can still have a future, can we?" She looked at me directly. "Can we have a future when every time you look at me, you see what they did? When every time I look at you, I wonder if you're capable of killing again if someone crosses you?" I had no answer to that. The truth hung between us, heavy and undeniable. "I need more time," she finally said. "I need to figure out who I am now, separate from this trauma, separate from you. And you need to figure out who you want to be, the man I married, or the person you became." She stood up, preparing to leave. I reached for her hand, and for a brief moment, she let me hold it. "I still love you," I whispered. "That never changed." "I know," she said softly. "But love isn't always enough to fix what's broken." She pulled her hand away gently, walked out of the coffee shop. I sat there alone, watching her disappear into the crowd outside, wondering if I'd just lost the only thing that mattered. Outside the window, life continued. People walking, cars passing, the world moving forward like nothing had changed. But my world had stopped the night they threw that acid, and I was starting to realize it might never start again. 6 months passed. 6 months of therapy, separation, and slowly learning to breathe again without feeling like I was drowning. Eliza and I met for coffee every week. Neutral ground, safe conversations. We talked about small things at first, weather, books she was reading, progress in her physical therapy. Slowly, carefully, we started talking about harder things, grief, guilt, whether forgiveness was even possible. One afternoon in early spring, she showed me something. We were sitting on a park bench, not the same park where it happened, somewhere new, somewhere without ghosts. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a photo. "I've been painting again," she said quietly. "My therapist suggested art therapy, processing trauma through creation instead of destruction." The painting showed a woman standing in front of a mirror, scars visible across her stomach, but her face was turned toward a window where light poured in. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. "That's incredible," I whispered. "It's me," she said, learning to live with what happened instead of being buried by it. She looked at me directly. "My therapist says healing isn't about forgetting or erasing the past. It's about integrating it, accepting it as part of your story without letting it define your entire future." "Have you integrated it?" She thought carefully. "I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. I still have nightmares. I still cry when I see pregnant women. But I'm learning to carry the pain without drowning in it." "And us?" I asked the question that had haunted me for months. "Is there still an us?" Eliza was quiet for a long time, watching children play in the distance, their laughter carrying on the breeze. "I don't know if we can go back to what we were," she finally answered. "Too much has changed. You did things I can never forget. I have scars I'll carry forever. Our baby is gone." My heart sank, but she continued. "But maybe we don't need to go back. Maybe we can move forward as different people who choose to heal together instead of apart." She turned to face me. "I spoke with my therapist about this. She said relationships after trauma either break completely or transform into something stronger, deeper, built on truth instead of illusions." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try, not to fix what's broken, but to build something new from the pieces." Tears filled her eyes. "But I need you to promise me something, Tristan. No more secrets. No more violence. No more revenge. Whatever demons you're still fighting, you fight them in therapy, not in the streets." "I promise," I said immediately. "I've been in therapy too, working through the guilt, the rage, learning to separate who I was in the military from who I want to be now." She reached for my hand, the first time she'd initiated physical contact in months. Her fingers intertwined with mine, scarred and trembling, but holding on. "My therapist asked me what I wanted from life now that everything's changed," she said softly. "And I realized I still want the things we dreamed about before. A home, a family, a future." Hope flickered in my chest, fragile but real. A family. The doctors say I can still get pregnant, despite the scarring. It would be high risk, require monitoring, but it's possible. She squeezed my hand. "I'm terrified, Tristan. Terrified of trying again, of losing another baby, of reliving that pain. But I'm more terrified of letting what they did steal my entire future. We'd do it together," I promised. "Every doctor's appointment, every moment of fear. I'd be there. I know you would." She smiled, small, tentative, but genuine. "That's why I think we can make this work." Over the following months, we rebuilt slowly. I moved back into the apartment, but we took things carefully, separate rooms at first, then gradually sharing space again. We went to couples counseling, worked through the trauma individually and together. Some sessions were brutal, ripping open wounds that hadn't fully healed. But others were hopeful, showing us glimpses of who we could become. A year after the attack, Eliza told me she was ready to try for another baby. The decision terrified both of us, but we moved forward with faith that healing was possible even after devastating loss. The pregnancy was difficult. Every ultrasound brought anxiety. Every milestone we'd reached before became a trigger for grief. But this time, we faced it together, holding each other through the fear. When Eliza went into labor, I thought my heart would stop. 9 hours of uncertainty, of remembering what we'd lost, of praying for a different outcome. And then, a cry. Strong, healthy, perfect. Our daughter came into the world screaming, and we both cried with her. The nurse placed her in Eliza's arms, and I watched my wife, scarred, broken, but fiercely strong, hold our child for the first time. "She's here," Eliza whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She's really here." We named her Hope, because that's what she represented. Proof that life could grow from ashes, that beauty could emerge from devastation, that tomorrow didn't have to be defined by yesterday's pain. Holding Hope for the first time, feeling her tiny fingers wrap around mine, I understood something I'd missed during my quest for revenge. Justice didn't bring healing. Punishment didn't erase trauma. Only love, time, and the courage to keep living despite the scars could do that. The men who attacked us were gone. Ryder would spend years in prison. Dominic remained institutionalized. Preston was buried. I'd gotten my revenge, exacted my justice. And it had cost me months of my life, nearly destroyed my marriage, and left me with guilt I'd carry forever. But looking at Eliza holding Hope, seeing life and future in her eyes instead of death and past, I realized we'd won something more important than revenge. We'd survived. We'd chosen healing over hatred. We'd built a future from the ruins of our tragedy. Detective Blake never found proof of what I'd done. The cases stayed closed. But sometimes I saw him watching from a distance, a reminder that some truths never fully disappear, even when they can't be proven. I could live with that, because the only truth that mattered now was the one sleeping peacefully in my wife's arms. New life, new hope, new beginning. As we sat together in that hospital room, our small family finally complete again, I made a silent promise to Hope. She'd never know the darkness that brought her into existence. She'd only know love, protection, and parents who fought their way back from hell to give her a beautiful life. Outside, the world continued, broken and beautiful, cruel and kind. But inside that room, holding my wife's hand while our daughter slept, I finally found peace. The past would always be part of us. The scars would never fully fade. But we'd learn to carry them without being crushed, to remember without drowning, to honor what we'd lost while embracing what we'd found. That was our victory. That was our justice. And that was enough. Before you go, I have to ask you something that's been on my mind. What would you have done in my place? When the system fails, when justice feels impossible, where's the line between right and wrong? Drop your answer in the comments below, and while you're there, tell me where you're watching from. Which city, which country. I love knowing this story reached you, wherever you are in the world. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because we've got more intense, emotional, epic revenge thrillers coming your way. Stories about betrayal, justice, and survival that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. And here's what I really want to know. What kind of stories do you want to hear next? Military revenge? Family betrayal? Cheating and consequences? Tell me in the comments what topics grab your attention most, and I'll bring those exact stories to life for you. Until we meet again in the next thriller, take care of yourselves, protect the ones you love, and remember, sometimes the strongest revenge is choosing to heal instead of destroy. Story is finished.